The meaning of the movie author Orpheus for reading 5 minutes published on 14.09. 2019 updated on 14.09. 2019, 7 Lives, is one of the best serious motion pictures with Will Smith. A melodrama about the injustice of the world, to mitigate the consequences of which can only human attitude and mercy to neighbor. About redemption and love, bringing meaning to even the most difficult and hopeless fates. The meaning of the movie is tragic, but, for the most part, lies on the surface and does not need additional interpretations. What the movie 7 Lives is about. A young man calls the emergency service to report a suicide. He identifies himself as the intended victim. The beginning of the movie is non-trivial, the technique, from the end, is used, the first frames already show the denouement of the story. This means that the main thing in the movie is not the intrigue and its conclusion, but the paths that the heroes had to take. The main character of the story is named Tim Thomas. 2 years ago, his seemingly completely frivolous oversight led to a big accident, in which 7 people lost their lives. Among these people was Ben's sweetheart, whom he was going to marry. The man is haunted by guilt. He tries to somehow compensate this world for the evil caused. He gives up his successful career, gets a job in the tax service. It may seem that this is not the best choice for a man who decided to live for the good of people, but he did it not without intention. The protagonist saves his brother's life by giving him a share of his lung. In this way, he pays back part of the debt for the people who died because of his fault. The man decides to follow this path. He looks for worthy, virtuous people or the weak, those whom no one else can help. The next person Tim saves Tim's life by becoming a donor is a good-natured child safety worker, Holly, but she needed part of a liver to trigger the regeneration of her own. The third redemptive sacrifice is a kidney transplanted into a hockey coach. Next, he saves the life of a child, a boy named Nicholas, by becoming a bone marrow donor. As Tim was not going to stop in his determination to give himself to the world, he did not limit himself to donation. Through Holly, he meets a woman who is regularly subjected to domestic violence. Not even her children stop her husband. She can't leave as she has nowhere to take her children and she can't leave them behind. Tim gives the woman his house by the sea so that she and her children can live in safety. Using his brother's ID with access to people's tax histories, Ben, or Tim, finds out who else is on permanent care and in need of donor organs, or at the same time, the man is considering how to pass away without damaging the organs to be transplanted. The protagonist finds 3 candidates, a female entrepreneur, a blind pianist, and the manager of a nursing home. The last candidate turns out to be a terrible person, so Tim refuses the idea of helping him. The musician, who makes money selling meat, needs an eye cornea, and the woman, Emily, needs a heart. There is immediate sympathy between Emily and Tim, and they fall in love with each other. But they both realize that they will not be together for long, as Emily knows that she is sick and dying, and Tim knows that he is going to kill himself, leaving his organs in his will. Emily has very little chance of living, as there are very few heart donors, and the woman also has a rare blood type, or like Tim. Tim, who was already beginning to lose his resolve to commit suicide, for the first time in 2 years he had a sense of life, he fell in love, decides to make one last sacrifice. Here comes the realization of what the movie is about. The noblest sacrifice is not for atonement, but for love. He commits suicide in a tub of cold water, having previously written a will for his organs, or cornea and heart, and called an ambulance. The meaning of the movie 7 Lives. Redemption and sacrifice in the name of love are very popular motifs in cinema. However, in this melodrama they are originally opposed to each other, which is not usually done. Is Tim to blame for the death of those 7 people, for the loss of 7 lives in fact? The viewer cannot say this for sure, the viewer only sees that the protagonist considers himself guilty. Perhaps he had no influence on the situation, perhaps what he is experiencing is just a survivor's complex. However, he decides to pay his debt, which looks noble. Whether it is actually sacrificial is also unequivocal, because in essence, the hero is so parting with a life that he does not need. Tim does not want to live when he sacrifices a liver, a kidney, a lung, his home. Real sacrifice, real redemption comes with love. The heart he gives to the woman he loves already wants to keep beating. Tim has a hard time with this decision, but he does the honorable thing. There was more redemption in this one act than in all the previous sacrifices. The meaning of the ending of the movie Seven Lives. The movie ends with the meeting of Emily and the pianist's epiphany after Tim's death. The heart of the protagonist is now in the breast of the woman he loves. She can live on, the healed musician sees it, or through Tim's eyes. At that moment the meaning of the ending is revealed. Tim sees that his sacrifice was not in vain, the price of 7 lives has been paid.